So guys, I want to talk about Maximum Carnage Collision, and I really want to say that AEW did a really great show tonight, and I kind of wonder if Tony Khan actually had the the 12-man tag team tonight, and he was kind of like, you know what, people are going to be a little riled up, really, so I'm going to create some outrage, and then people are going to watch, and they're actually going to enjoy. They did a really great job with it, and also, too, there was a lot of people who were really happy to see Jon Moxley tonight. He got a really great crowd reaction. I'm also really happy that they actually featured Powerhouse Hobbs dominantly tonight, So it's very clear to me that the four pillars of AEW right now are Anthony Bowens, Kyle Fletcher, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Darby Allin. So that seems to be their next generation of future champions if they really push them, to another level. And I'm really excited to see what they can do with AEW. That I did buy my tickets. Unfortunately, I'm not going to Revolution this year just because I don't like going to Los Angeles. But I'm definitely excited to see, where the other shows are going to be this year, So I feel a little heartbroken because I'm like, man, if they keep pushing those four guys, they're going to have a really great year. So let's talk about Maximum Collision. That overall, I'm very happy that they're starting Collision with promos, so you feel really hyped about what's going on tonight, and that's a good formula. It's foreshadowing, it's allowing wrestlers to get you emotionally invested, and it's them being characters and not match after match. So that is a really good format. And I also want to say that, with Collision, I think they said they have to make it a bigger deal and a better deal. So I really think that, quite obviously, I really think that they really respect that Collision needs to up the ante, and I want to see more Collision be strong. So it was really good. Then you opened with Hangman Adam Page versus Christopher Daniels, Texas Death Match. It was a 5 out of 5 for me. I really appreciate them having a bunch of wide shots of the audience. It looked like they had a lot of people there tonight. They both exchange fist strikes in the beginning. I appreciate them having a graphic about HBO Max mentioning that, okay, it's a 1 year of HBO Max. You can watch all the AEW pay-per-views and other things like that. So I'm really happy with that. And then also, it took a while for them to get a little violent with this match. They started with some forearms. It took a while for them to get into more of the hardcore stuff. So they kind of made you anticipate it. Hangman hits the chain. Hits a chair on Christopher Daniels. Christopher Daniels bleeds. Hangman introduces barbed wire and presses it on Daniels' forehead. Hangman whips and piano wire chokes Christopher Daniels with that barbed wire. Hangman wraps barbed wire around arm and hits a lariat on Daniels. Hangman throws Daniels into a chair, and they set up a ringside and they set up a table during ringside. And during the commercial break, what they do is there's a power bomb from Hangman to Christopher Daniels onto chairs. So I like that they said, okay, this is really cool. This is during the commercial break. Most people are not going to see it, but we're going to recap it. If you want to see more stuff, you're going to have to come to the show, watch it live. So that's really good. Hangman hits a double foot stomp through a table. This is a great reference because that's Swerve's finishing move. Hangman sets up a barbed wire table. Christopher Daniels hits a uranagi, putting Hangman through the barbed wire table. Christopher Daniels hits a German suplex, and I appreciate Christopher Daniels having a comeback. Hangman clotheslines Daniels on the top ramp. Christopher Daniels hits a Koji clutch submission. Hangman uses barbed wire in the eyes to get out of that submission hold. Christopher Daniels hits the angles wings. Great sequence, pay-per-view caliber level match. Christopher Daniels hits the best moonsault ever. Christopher Daniels hits another best moonsault ever, putting the barbed wire table, broken fragments on top of Hangman. And, definitely just clapping him onto that. Hangman goes to a 9 count. Hangman hits a pile driver onto Daniels onto a chair. Hangman hits his Deadeye finisher onto a chair. Hangman hits a buckshot lariat. Daniels could not respond to a 10 count. This was a 5 out of 5 match. There was no issues for me. I appreciate Daniels fighting back. They had a build to this, so this isn't just let's have a violent match for the sake of having a violent match. There was actually a story leading into this. Hangman comes back to the ring and does an angel wings on the Christopher Daniels. So I did say that one thing that I would have had was I would have, one of Daniel's friends come out and be like, what the fuck is this? And I'm actually going to create some consequences. I think that you could have done, Kenny Omega coming out And then you could set up Kenny Omega versus Daniels. Or what if Christopher Daniels had another friend backstage that's like, you know, what the fuck, man, you're taking this too far, and we're gonna have a match because you took it too far, Christopher Daniels. What if that was like Dana Garcia, or maybe somebody Christopher Daniels mentored? Like there could have been a tie-in to a future opponent with Hangman Adam Page, because you want to make sure that there's some, what's the word, follow-up, really. And I also think that they need to kind of have a follow-up on Dynamite and be like, hey, Hangman just did this, you know, what's next for him, and where is it going to go, really? Because Hangman Adam Page is a really great talent. He's one of those people that I feel, just like a Shawn Michaels, where he can be that type of person for AEW, where he's around the heavyweight championship bit picture. He needs to kind of have upper mid-card type of feuds, and he needs to actually, you know, be in that realm or go after the AEW championship. There really needs to be good booking with him. So I hope that they can kind of add on to this. And I will also say that another thing that I want to see is really, you know, one thing I want to say is that I really appreciate them opening the show with this, because you have to have something that hooks people, and this definitely hooked people. So if you stay around for other really great things, you know, you have a great opening. It's announced that next week it's going to be the Hurt Syndicate versus Private Party in Knoxville. I was a little disappointed because they actually showed the Hurt Syndicate, but they did not show Private Party having a response to this. I think that would have been very appropriate, because you're almost like saying, okay, well, Private Party, they're definitely going to job to these guys. It really should be Private Party being like, okay, you know, we're not jobbers. We're not like people who are irrelevant. We're always going to fight you. We're always going to not back down or whatever. Or maybe, you know what, there needs to be more of a story, really, because I really think right now it's just, you know, put the titles on the Hurt Syndicate, then Private Party, you know what, they're going to be irrelevant. So I was not happy with Private Party not following up with this. The next match was United Undisputed Kingdom versus Shane Taylor Promotions. It was a little hard to follow for me, because I really don't know, like, Lee Moriarty and Captain Shawn Dean. They really need to do a little bit more featuring them having matches where we actually are more familiar with them. Like, you see them on Ring of Honor, but they disappear a lot. So it was almost like, who are these people? I didn't know who was really who in that match, really. You know, even with Kyle O'Reilly, you haven't done a lot with me to kind of make him, you know, kind of stand out. I really just watch these people and, like, you know, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know who that guy is. So when I watched the match, I wasn't really invested. I was happy to see Shane Taylor do a post-match beatdown, and they had Daniel Garcia come out. So I was saying to myself, you know, what if you had Daniel Garcia versus Shane Taylor for the TNT Championship? I think that they should really do that. The other thing, too, is they need to get rid of the TBS Championship, rename it to the Women's TV Championship, and also rename the TBS Championship, the TNT Championship, to the AEW television title. Just they really need to do those things, because that's like fucking ridiculous. I'll do a video about that. Another thing is that, you know, I really appreciate the ending where they had multiple people, like they had 5 people who needed to do a move on Shane Taylor to take him out, really. So he looked very, very strong, but it's like what I said, that I don't think they're going to push Shane Taylor. I think he's just going to be like, you know, a flash in the pan tonight, but they really, really, really need to be like, hey, Shane Taylor, the motherfucker has to matter. You know, he is a big man. He has a great voice. He can instigate a crowd. He can get a reaction. That needs to be developed, and if they don't develop him, then, you know, fuck AEW, because there's definitely a talent in that, and he can't be one of those people that are just like, he's just there, but he's never really going forward. He's somebody that needs to go forward. There is something with Shane Taylor. It needs to be developed, and I think if you give him, you know, a TBS championship reign, or you do like a feud with Daniel Garcia, I really think that you can kind of see if Shane Taylor can go further, or he belongs in Ring of Honor. But Shane Taylor needs a lot. 2 out of 5 for me for this match. The next thing is that Will Ospreay calls out Kenny Omega. They're going to have a sit down face to face next week. This is good, because, you know, them being a tag team, them kind of, you know, working together against the Don Callis family, I think that'll be great. This was like the worst part of the night. I actually give it a 0 out of 5, which is they had Brian Cage and Lance Archer versus Darius and Dante Martin. So it looked like what happened was that they just jumped this or in the middle of the match. Like there was an editing error because it was like, okay, now this match is like midway through. So what hell happened really? If you have an editor, you have to say, you know what, you have 3 strikes, you're out really, because you cannot have this on television. This is not acceptable. It looked like there was an editing error or something like that happened. So I was a little confused. Also, this match went on a little too long because obviously you have Brian Cage, you have Lance Archer. They're big, powerful men, really. So you have to make this like a 1 minute, 2 minute squash match. And then after that, you have Action Andretti come out and Lio Rush, and they both attack Top Flight. So I'm a little kind of concerned because it's like, what you're doing with Action Andretti and Lio Rush long term. They really have to get wins. They really have to be a formidable threat. And I kind of wonder, what are you going to do with them? Because, you know, if you're going to have the Hurt Syndicate take over the tag team division, you know, what can you get out of Lio Rush and Action Andretti? Because they're like, you know, small guys, you know, unless they're like, okay, we want to join the Hurt Syndicate. And they're going to be like, okay, you know what, one of you guys can take on, you know, Daniel Garcia because he ain't that big of a guy really. Or we need to have you guys go after like Ring of Honor titles because, you know, Sammy and I know Lio Rush and Action Andretti versus Sammy Guevara and Dustin seems believable, but you're not going to have the Hurt Syndicate take on Action Andretti and Lio Rush because they both look like high school freshmen. And if you do something like you have Action Andretti have a surprise win on top of, you know, Bobby Lashley, or they both double team like Bobby Lashley or Shelton Benjamin and get a victory, you know, that's not believable to anybody. So I don't know the future of these guys. And maybe one of those things where, you know, right now the tag division, I think they're gonna just have Lashley and Shelton, but you need believable opponents. You can't have small people to have opponents. So I'm not sure what they're gonna do with this whole Top Flight thing, where it's gonna lead to, and what their future is gonna be really, you know, because they all look like jobbers, but it seems like they want to make them a big deal. But how do you make the big deal when they don't look legit really? They look just like, you know, a bunch of small fries, you know. So it might be one of those things too where, you know, they could go after Commander, they can go out, you can create like maybe a cruiserweight division, but I don't kind of see a future plan for, you know, Action Andretti, Lio Rush, Darius Martin, and Darius and Dante Martin, unless you push them strongly. But I think they're past their prime with that, you know. I think if they feud with the Young Bucks or something like that, that would be better to kind of build legitimacy. And I'm saying all these things because I care about like all these wrestlers. So, you know, I think the roadmap would be they have to feud with the Young Bucks or other like, you know, smaller type of wrestlers and build legitimacy. And it's going to be a slow build for all of them if you want to actually do something with them. And if you don't do that, then you might as well just say, you know what, go to TNA Wrestling and be part of the X Division. So the next one of the big segments of the night was Anthony Bowens versus Max Caster segment. So Anthony Bowens calls him an edgelord piece of shit. People think you absolutely suck. You know, Max Caster is actually got a trademark, a government trademark saying he's the best wrestler in the world. He got that trademarked. And Anthony Bowens is saying, I have the ability to be champion. Billy Gunn comes out. Max Caster says, even your sons don't want anything to do with you, Billy Gunn. Anthony Bowen has to choose between Max Caster and Billy Gunn. He chooses Billy Gunn. Max Caster is saying, like, you know, you suck, all these fans suck. Anthony Bowen has really great promo skills. He knows how to hype. He knows how to have emotions. He knows how to kind of get a feeling out of the crowd, really. And that's like what I said, that, you know, he needs to be one of these 4 pillars. They really need to put him in the championship pictures. Could you imagine Anthony Bowens versus Jon Moxley, or Anthony Bowens versus Adam Copeland, or Anthony Bowens versus Swerve, or Anthony Bowens, you know, versus Bobby Lashley? Like, I really think that there's a lot to Anthony Bowens. And this is a year where they cannot drop the ball on Anthony Bowens. And I really think that needs to be a video for, and I'm writing out my notes, a video for the future. And I think that, as I said, that, you know, there are some wrestlers right now, like Anthony Bowens and Hobbs, that you really cannot drop the ball on. And even like Kyle Fletcher. And I just think that, honestly, you can't drop the ball on these 3 guys because, you know, they're definitely the next generation of wrestlers. And honestly, if they go into obscurity, they have to go to WWE NXT and become something, because and this is kind of like a bailout for AEW. I really think you invest in these 3 wrestlers, you're going to have a great future in AEW. The next match was Tomohiro Ishii versus Okada. Unfortunately, I had a situation, so I wasn't able to watch a lot of this match, but what I saw was really good. They both were 50-50. They both, dodged each other's moves. They both, kind of countered a lot, and they both just, were ducking and dodging. And sometimes in a lot of these AEW matches, they do a lot of, hitting each other, but sometimes it's good to show wrestlers know each other so well that they can avoid each other's offense. And I also appreciate that they did kind of talk a little bit, and you kind of just knew, who Okada is and Ishii is. And, that's important too, because like I said, you can't feature 2 wrestlers that most people don't know about, because most people know them from New Japan Pro Wrestling. You have to give them context. And I also want to say that I appreciate AEW because they really feature Japanese wrestlers a lot more. They're not really doing what WWE does, where they don't feature that many Japanese wrestlers, or there's stereotypes, or, you have Asuka screaming in Japanese, really. So they really kind of normalize Japanese wrestlers and Asian wrestlers. And I really, really think that, that should be a talking point. And also they kind of really normalize black wrestlers as well, really. So I really think those should be really good talking points. In this match, Tomohiro Ishii hits a bunch of forearms and a clothesline and knife edge chops into Okada. Okada hits a scoop slam. Ishii hits a rainmaker. Okada does a drop kick. Okada doesn't drop kick to Ishii's back. Okada low blows. He gets the ring bell, and the referee puts it back. Okada hits a low blow and a rainmaker and gets the pinfall on Ishii. And this is good because actually Okada is a heel, and they want to remind you that even though he is with the Young Bucks, even though the Young Bucks are not there, he's still the villain. And that's what they need to do, man, because if you don't do that, what's going to happen is you're going to be like, okay, who's Okada? He's going to feel irrelevant. So he has to kind of remind people, okay, this is me. This is my role, is to be a villain. My role is to be, I'm rich, I'm better than everybody else, really. So I appreciate him understanding his character, and that's really, really important. The other thing is that after that, they had a match, Dustin Rhodes versus Anthony Priest. And what I would have to say is that, before the match started, the Gates of Agony did a promo, and I appreciate their energy, and they mentioned their accomplishments and the things that they've done, and they really just are adding a bunch of fire to themselves, and I really appreciate that. So that's really, really important. And I think that in addition to that, they announced that it's going to be Gates of Agony versus Buddy and Brody, because the Gates of Agony also needs to be a team that's like, okay, we need to step up. And also you look at them, they have muscles on their body, really. Brody and Buddy have muscles. So obviously you're setting up a good tag team division, Gates of Agony, Brody and Buddy, and you're also setting up the Hurt Syndicate. So I really, really think that they're definitely trying to work very, very hard with the tag team division. And they've learned kind of from last year that you don't do something like you don't have people in charge of the tag team division like the Young Bucks and they don't defend their titles or they go on for a long time. You need people who want to be like, I want to get in the ring. I want to spread my fire, really, so. And then you also have to have a tag team division of really hungry people. So I really think that they're really just fixing the tag team division. So I really appreciate the improvement. The next thing that I want to say is that, during the match you had Dustin and Adam Priest. Dustin hits the power slam, knife edge chops, and crossroads. And it was really a jobber match, so I'm not sure why they did this. I really, really think that this was a bad match. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars because it's almost like, why would you have Dustin face a jobber? I really think that what they should have done was have MJF come out, attack Dustin, and then you set up Dustin versus MJF. And then after that, you set up a match of Jeff Jarrett versus MJF at Grand Slam. Or you could even do something like Dustin versus MJF at Grand Slam, and then Jeff Jarrett versus MJF at Revolution. So that way you have 2 matches for your shows, really. I think that would be a really great one, so it did feel like they could have had something after this, and Dustin knows better. He's been a veteran he's been wrestling for over 30 years, I believe. So he knows better, he knows better. He's been wrestling since 1989. So, he's wrestling for 36 years. So he knows better to just be like, okay, there should have been something a little bit extra. The next match was Julia Hart, and I gave it 2 out of 5. The next match was Julia Hart versus Harley Cameron. I really wasn't invested in this match. It was 2 out of 5 for me. Harley Cameron hits an enziguri. Jamie Hayter hits Julia Hart hits an octopus choke, running elbow. Harley Cameron does a roll-up at 10. Julia Hart hits a lariat behind the head, and then she does the heartless submission. So it's a good back and forth, but I know they've kind of feuded a little bit, and they kind of explained that, okay, she spit ink in her face, so Harley Cameron wants to get some payback. But I really think that I wish there was something further, what else are you going to do with, Harley Cameron and Julia Hart? They're just there to be there. So I wish that, there was a bit of an epilogue type of thing. And I've kind of said this before, one of the things they can do is make Athena more relevant, so what would happen if Harley Cameron gets beat down and it's revealed that she's friends with, Athena, and then you set up something, or she's friends with the Ring of Honor women's, I think television or whatever title that they have. I think it's the women's TV champion. So you need to kind of lead into other future stuff, really. Or what would happen if Harley Cameron was beat down and then Marina Shafir comes out and she just wants to be an asshole, really, So I think that's something good. And also Harley Cameron, she has a lot of spunk and personality. So I really, really think that, there has to be, possibly a usage of her. As I said, she can be a little bit like Julian Garcia. And I think she can be a little bit like Jillian in WWE, where she kind of is singing and being annoying. And then that could get over. And then also, in addition to that, you actually make her kind of like this underdog and then eventually has some wins, really. So I really think that there's a underdog type of character in Harley Cameron. So I really hope that gets developed. But I gave it 2 out of 5, really, because I really didn't feel that it's going to lead to anything. So then there's the main event. Learning Tree attacks Powerhouse Hobbs backstage. Outrunners, FTR, Hobbs, Death Riders. Outrunners, FTR, Hobbs versus the Learning Tree. And, this is the 12-man match, really. So they had 25 minutes. And this is good because sometimes they kind of rush a little bit with these matches, or they don't give enough time. So Jericho versus Dax is what happens first. The exchange slaps. Chris Jericho hits a shotgun drop kick. Brian Keith comes out and attacks Dax. He does knife edge chops. Dax responds with snap suplex. FTR does a double team on Brian Keith. Wheeler Yuta versus Cash happens. So Cash hits an R-bomb. Wheeler hits a knife edge chop. They exchange knife edge chops to each other. Then it goes to Wheeler Yuta versus Truth Magnum. They exchange knife edge chops. The Outrunners do a double team on Yuta. Turbo does a delayed suplex on Yuta. Then for a while, all the members start, all 11 people start fighting, because remember, Hobbs is not in this yet. So they hit the commercial break. So this is a good use of a commercial break. They just brawl a little bit. The commercial break comes back. There's some, organization. Then you do Moxley versus Dax. Moxley hits a pile driver. He gets a great crowd reaction. Wheeler drives his knee into Dax. Wheeler hits a suplex and chokehold on Dax. Wheeler and Dax exchange sleeper holds. Dax hits a release German suplex. Then you do Adam Copeland versus Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho counters the spear with a code breaker. Turbo Floyd scoop slam Jericho. The Outrunners scoop slam and double team Brian Keith and Chris Jericho. There is a lot of violating the tag rules right now. So a lot of people get their moves in. So what happens a little bit towards the end of the match is that it's just a lot of brawling and a lot of people just jumping in the ring and doing this and that type of thing, really, without tagging in. Sometimes that's good, but sometimes, that's bad, really. But I think with tonight, I'm gonna just let it go, really, because I really, really think that, that's part of the AEW style, but I really enjoy this match. So sometimes, in a very rare situation, you can kind of violate rules and do what you want, really. But other times it's like a little annoying. But I think like there's so much, going on here that I like, that I enjoyed. And then the other part of this match, and I'm gonna say, is that I really appreciate this segment because like it's showing like what all these wrestlers can do, all these combinations of matches you can have really. Like, so I really think, like I said, there was a bunch of pressure to make sure this translates to the audience, and they definitely did that. So this was a really great match, and I'll continue with what happened. FTR, they both do the Shatter Machine double team move on Big Bill. Pac attacks Adam Copeland outside the ring. The Death Riders try to kidnap Adam Copeland and put bag on his head. And there's another fight in the crowds. And the reason why they did that was just to get rid of everybody except Brian Keith, Chris Jericho, and I believe the Outrunners. So those were the only people left in the ring. So with that said, you have a few. You went from like 12 people to 4 people. So that way you kind of cleared out and you reached an ending, really. But there was a lot of brawling in the crowd. You got people excited, and I would say that I'm okay with this, So now it's Chris Jericho and Turbo Floyd, and what happens is that Turbo Floyd's kind of injured pretty badly, and he's going to a corner. Hobbs comes back, and it's Hobbs versus Brian Keith. Hobbs has a 2-on-1 with Brian Keith and Chris Jericho with a wounded knee. So this is good because it's showing that Hobbs is resilient, and it makes him look strong, and that's what they really need to do with Hobbs. And they really need to establish that, yes, he is two things. He is somebody who can be a future champion, and he's also a wrestler, in my opinion, that, you need a big, strong man to actually, be the AEW champion one day. You can't always have these slender type of wrestlers, really. You need to kind of have a powerhouse or a big man type of wrestler. So all this really made Hobbs look strong. He did Big Bill versus Hobbs. They exchanged forearms. Chris Jericho hits a double axe handle on Hobbs from the top rope. The Outrunners do a total recall double team on Chris Jericho. Hobbs hits a spine butt buster on Brian Keith. I'm not happy that Brian Keith gets he's kind of like the jobber. You need to have Big Cass or Chris Jericho be a jobber. I think that would help. I think if he pinfalled Chris Jericho, I think that would be a better story. So I'm going to hit them for that, really, because you can't just have Brian Keith or really you to be the jobbers. You need to kind of have somebody else get the pinfall. I think Chris Jericho should have gotten the pinfall, and then you set up Chris Jericho versus Hobbs for the Ring of Honor title at your next Ring of Honor show, and that's what they should have done. Overall, 4 out of 5 stars. Like I've said, that I'm a big fan of how they made Hobbs look strong in this match. I'm a big fan that they took all the controversy surrounding this and they responded with a great match, and they responded with a lot of expectations. And I really think that Hobbs has a really great future with AEW this year. I think he's booked strongly. He's not going to be somebody that they pass over. If they do that, fuck them. And fuck AEW if they pass him over. He really needs to shine this year. And then the other thing that I will say about this 100% is that quite honestly, I really appreciate everybody shining in this tonight. And I also really hope the Outrunners, you can do the Hurt Syndicate versus the Outrunners for the AEW Tag Team Championships. That needs to happen this year. I really, really think that needs to happen this year. I also am going to say that I appreciate everybody just putting in a lot of work, and that looks really, really good. I was a little upset with the ending, though, because I really think with the ending, I really wish that, Raid FTR came out with everybody, and they all either hoisted Hobbs up, or if they did something where they all raised their hands, and you see Adam Copeland raise the hand of Hobbs. Hobbs should have pinned Jericho. You should have had Adam Copeland come back and lift Hobbs' hand, and they're all lifting their hands together, because that way you're trying to transition Hobbs into a main event type of person, really. So I think that they did a lot of step forwards with Hobbs, but they could have done a lot more steps forwards with him. So I really want to say that overall, the show was really great. I really enjoyed it. I would say it's a 4 out of 5 for me. It's definitely one of the best episodes. And I also appreciate that they had a bunch of controversy coming into the show, and they were kind of like, you know what? we're going to still stick with the main event. We're still going to do what we want to do, but we're going to think about it and make it shine a lot more. And the big thing that they need to do with this main event was to make Hobbs a big deal and say to the audience that Hobbs definitely has a future in AEW. He definitely will be featured, and he's definitely going to matter. And it's not going to be a situation where he becomes like Wardlow, where he disappears. And if AEW does that, fuck them for that. And I would also say that when I look at the show, I really think that Anthony Bowens has a really big future as well, really. And definitely there's a lot of good matches that are going to happen next week. Like Samoa Joe versus like Nick Wayne. I think that's going to be really great to see like what they pull off in that. I really think that I'm excited to see Ospreay and Omega. I'm also excited to see the Hurt Syndicate gain the tag team titles. So there's a lot of just things that I'm looking forward to. Tony Storm did a segment, but I wasn't really into it. Like, she kind of joked around with Tony Schiavone because they both have the name Tony, really, So I really think that that's going to be like my biggest downfall of the show, is that I think that they really, really need to just focus more on women's feuds, or more people trying to go after the women's title. Like, I think you need like a bunch of like people like saying, hey, you know what, we're sharks in the water, and we want to go after that title as well, really. I think that that's what they need to do. Harley Cameron can like talk about like, wanting to win the title, want to be treated seriously, and hopefully try and make a roadmap, so she can like maybe win the title. Marina Shafir should be talking about that. And she needs to be kind of more like, it's not just the men's division, it's the women's division. So maybe you can incorporate another lady in the Hurt Syndicate. In the Death Riders. And that should be another video I'm gonna do, like Marina Shafir underutilized. So I really, really think that there's a lot of things that they did right this year in this show, but there's a lot of just things they have to really improve on. And I like doing my constructive criticism videos. And I want to tell you guys that I'm a fan of AEW, that honestly, if I'm not doing these videos, look, I've been to all their shows, from all their pay-per-views, from All Out 2023 to World's End 2024. If I'm like doing reviews and videos and video essays and all this stuff, it's clearly that I care about the company. If I didn't care about them, I would just not give a fuck and not watch, really. I think that what I like about AEW is that, there's a lot more unpredictability in that company versus WWE. I think with WWE, you kind of know they're always going to be successful. They're always going to have the format. They're always going to be like the McDonald's of professional wrestling. They're always going to be there. And AEW is kind of like that burger place that's, they can figure out sometimes. They may not figure out other times. You kind of have there's unpredictability if they're going to be successful or not. So I think that's why I like watching the company, really. So, I really enjoyed it. I had a really great time. And I can't wait to see what they do in the future. So a lot of great stuff.